Her triumphs. I took a group of women that didn't believe in themselves, and I just believed in them. Her trials.
I never wanted to go to practice. I was losing a ton of weight.
Her story.
I just put my faith in God and just trusted the system.
Her why.
I want people to see what I did and say, oh, that's so awesome. I'm going to be better than that. That would be how I hope that this journey ends.
This is Her Why, where we tell the stories from BYU women's sports. Here is your host, Lauren McLean.
We're so glad you've joined us for Her Why, where we celebrate the women who make BYU sports great. And joining us now is BYU women's basketball head coach Amber Whiting to recap her debut in the Big 12 and to give us a sneak peek into the 2024-25 season. Thank you so much for being here with me, Coach.
Anytime. This is fun.
This is going to be awesome. Hopefully you get a little bit of a break before your grueling season, even though I know you don't actually, because we were just talking about that. But what are your plans for the off season?
We're portaling like crazy. It's hopping right now, and so we have a lot of moving pieces as far as roster goes, but we just need to get our roster set. So that's what my next big focus is the next couple months.
So do you get any time to yourself?
We have a dead period that's completely no recruiting. So that's when I tell my staff, like, I'm leaving. I'm going to go with my family, and don't call me.
How hard is that, though? Because it's got to be so hard to shut off your brain because you're the head coach of the basketball team, right? Like that's life, that's your career. And then even though it's like there's a 2-week period, it's got to be hard to shut it off.
No, I don't think it ever shuts off. My husband makes fun of me that it always takes me like 4 or 5 days to unwind, and our vacation's 7. So then I'll be, and then we're right back at it. But it's just, I wouldn't be who I am if I wasn't trying to put everything into it. So
it's a great last 2 days of vacation then. All right, Coach, you finished your second season as BYU's head coach for the women's basketball team. What was the season like compared to last season? Were you more comfortable? How would you compare the two?
I would say there's different trials in every year, and that's what I've learned. Like, you could say, oh, let's change this next year, but then you're just going to trade one set of problems for a new one. I feel like this season compared to last year, the WCC, my record was the same, right? Like, so the WCC compared to Big 12 was incredibly more physical, harder. Like, every night out, you're going against the best of the best. There's no nights off. And coaching against those type of coaches, like, it just made me really, really appreciate the Power 5 conference and, what it is and what it stands for. And I'm excited to be a part of it. And I want to grow from what we did this year to next year. So yeah, I feel like the year was a success. I don't think a lot of people look at it like that, but if we jumped conferences and our record was the same and we had to deal with what we dealt with throughout the year, we were picked 11th and we finished 10th, and then just the wins and have a top 20 win in there, that was one of the most memorable games of last season. But I just feel like my women, we were never really out of it, maybe 1 or 2 games, but we were in every game. People would go up, we'd fight back, and go up, fight back. And so I just feel like the grit and toughness that they displayed was a huge thing for our women to see that they can play with anybody, any night, and just to build upon that.
I love that. And we're going to get into some of the specifics of those games a little bit later. How do you feel like you've changed as a coach and a person since last year?
I've learned to delegate a lot more, and to, my assistants do a really, really good job of what they're good at. And so I'm learning their strengths, and so to play to them. Like, for instance, Lee, he takes a baseline out of bounds or end of game scenarios, right? And it's literally so nice to just turn to him and be like, okay, what do you think? And he has it right on the top of his brain, ready to go, and he's practiced it all week, and so he can see. And so I just want to play to their strengths as far as that goes, and I feel like they've done a really good job helping me to relax more in what I need to do in my job. And so it's becoming way more seamless this year.
That's awesome. Yeah. You mentioned how physical the Big 12 has been compared to, you can't even just say the WCC, right? Compared to a lot of other conferences. What were your expectations heading into the Big 12? Was it like, oh, this is going to be a mountain we're going to have to climb, or did you have realistic expectations? What were you thinking?
I knew it was going to be a gauntlet. Like, that was given, right? But then just the physicality, like I said, and adding to what we needed to do and travel-wise, and then the way people make adjustments to change that across the board, I just feel like everything amped up. And the girls had so much, like there was not any game that we went into it like, oh, we got this, right? Like, because like in the WCC, sometimes you feel that way, right? And so, and I remember our first game at Kansas State, I think they were ranked 4th. No, it was at TCU. And they were ranked at the time. And I just remember going to that game thinking, we are going to have opportunities every night out to knock off top 20 teams. Like, that's an incredible feeling, you know what I mean? Because in the WCC, it might be only Gonzaga that's ranked. You know, and so it's fun. And the atmospheres that you're in, those gyms that you're in, like, it's exciting. And the venues and I don't know, just everything across the board was a lot more intense than I thought. But it was also more memorable too.
Do you prefer being the underdog, having that underdog mentality? Because that's definitely going into this season. That's kind of how it was. Or because there's a lot of pressure when you're on top as well. What do you prefer from those two?
I like the underdog. I like the fight. And so for me, it's like being able to have somebody, you know, maybe they're going to overlook you tonight, you know what I mean? Or maybe you're going to have a phenomenal game and you're going to play together as a team and things are going to just click into place. So I like being the underdog. I like to have that fight. So
before we get into the season, there were a lot of changes to your team this year with players leaving and injuries. How do you help your team maintain the chemistry with each other during kind of uncertain times like that?
We had really open and honest conversations, and we also had the hard conversations. And just like, I was very vulnerable throughout the season on how I was feeling, or, you know, what I was dealing with, or, you know, how they were feeling and how they were dealing with things. And so I felt like that helped. But at the end of the day, I got to give credit to them because they love each other and they accept each other for who they are. And they're more like sisters than you would ever imagine. You know, I mean, they might fight off the court and after they're going to get lunch or doing something. Right. And so I just always admire them for what they bring every day. But this year, I didn't ever have those conversations of effort and energy. Like, they just gave it every day. No matter what happened at the game before, they brought it. And so that's one thing that I love about this group. But just they love each other. And you can't substitute. You can't, you know, fake it. You have to be in that. And so I really, really appreciate and admire that of them.
That's huge. Let's dig into the season a little bit. You went 10-3 in the non-conference schedule to start the season. What was going right for your team during that time?
I feel like the chemistry was really good. They were playing very connected, playing really well together. Even those 3 losses, I feel like a couple of them we shouldn't have, you know. But, you know, having losses, I feel like you learn and grow from as well. And so and I try not, you know, you don't want your highs to get too high. So it's just one game at a time. So when you look back at it, 10-3. But in the mix, you're just next game, you know, so.
You lost your first 4 games of conference play. How do you help your team recover from losses, especially when they're back-to-back like that, and just kind of try and focus on the next game?
That was a tough stretch. I actually had one of my mentors call me that has been in college basketball for a long time, you know, and he just said, you know, there's always a valley of death before you come out the other side. And so he was like, just keep grinding. So not that he had to remind me to keep grinding because that's it, you know, but the women, you know, we got this like next game mentality, you know, and they were just right there a couple times. And I just felt like, you know, once we get over the hump of learning how to win a game in the Big 12, I felt like it would be a lot easier. And I saw a lot come from that one and that first win after then. And then they kind of realized like they can play with anybody any night.
What goes into that, learning how to win a game? Because, I mean, there's something to it because a lot of teams are always just right there, right? Like just right there and just can't get over that hump. So what goes into that?
I mean, our backcourt was young, right? So like, oh crap. I mean, the amount of times I wanted to pull my hair out in like time and score or don't push that or don't make, you know what I mean? And so like, and my assistants would have to keep me a little bit calmer during those moments. But just that in and of itself, like, you know, you get down to crunch time and one mistake can change something and or one bad shot or one bad pass or I mean just even if it's not, like, you can turn the momentum over that quick. And so just being able to, you know, think about things, being calm in those moments and using your timeouts wisely or your possessions wisely, I feel like they got better with that. And then they finally got it, that first win, and it was really nice.
You ended up going 6-12 in conference by the end. How were you able to adapt as conference play progressed and you realized the physicality of the women that you were playing?
I would say I would give tribute to our trainers. Like he was more managing of the bodies. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
And then like our strength guy, Steven, so Jeff and Steven are really big in that nature. They work well with each other, and then they kind of communicate with me, she played a lot of minutes last night, you need to dial it back, or let's take this practice and, shorten it here, just because their bodies take the beating. And so I just listened to them, with what they were saying. And so, just managing of the bodies, I feel like, of the physicality, because they got to turn around and do it in 2 days. And so we can't kill them the next day, you know, so.
Takes a community.
Yeah, for sure.
My goodness.
For sure.
Big win against number 18 Baylor on February 7th. Looking back, what made your team so successful in that game?
I think that, and maybe they overlooked us. I don't know. But we came out fire in that game, and we had a really strong start. And our defense was really connected. And, we were firing on all cylinders. Everybody contributed to that game. And so I look back at that, and I just remember thinking, like, in that last little bit, like, are we gonna really do this? Like, this is happening, you know what I mean? Because they were just so confident. You could see it in their faces, you could see it in their eyes, and they really just wanted it. And I feel like that was a huge difference in that game.
Did you feel that confident too?
So the day before, Morgan and I sat down, and it was her scout, and you as a scout, when you have it, you're trying to make sure all the details are there, right? And I just turned to her and I said, we're ready. You have us prepared. And I said, at the end of the day, the players got to make plays. Yeah. And she was like, yeah, you're right. And they did. They made plays, and they came up with some big moments. And so that was a freaking fun game.
So amazing. In the Big 12 tournament, the team took a hit when Kaylee Woolston hurt her knee in the first quarter, and the Kansas Jayhawks ended up pulling ahead. How would you describe that tournament game?
I feel like our game plan was working really, really well. We went at halftime we were down by 1, 2, I can't remember exactly, but our game plan was working really well, and Kaylee had hit some big shots, and Amari was getting to the rim, and everybody was stepping up. And the defensive side of things, the connectivity was there, and it was working. And so then when Kaylee went down, it's like I had somebody else get in foul trouble. I can't remember exactly who. Anyways, it changes your game plan. It changes how you want to play. And so, I don't think Smiler even got a rest that whole first half, because it was her turn, like on the sub, when you do rotations. And I just remember looking at that, like, these guys got to they got to gut it out, and Lauren played huge minutes for us that game. And it was a lot. So, yeah, it wasn't, necessarily the storybook ending we wanted, because it's hard to beat a team 3 times in a row, right? And they had already got us twice. So I kind of, going into that game, I knew this was ours, right? And the way we started, I had a really good feeling, and then it was just, it started unraveling.
Fate had other plans.
I know.
So hard to accept, though. In the postseason, you get the opportunity to play in the first ever WBIT. You draw Santa Clara, and even with 3 players in Amari, Kaylee Smiler, and Lauren Davenport scoring in double digits, you end up losing a heartbreaking fashion by 1 point. What was your takeaway from that postseason game?
Well, we didn't have Woolston, so it changed the starting lineup in that nature. And then also, we had to play a couple girls that hadn't been playing, and they came in and made some really good plays and took some, really good minutes and helped us. But just having the lack of depth in that moment, I feel like that really kind of got to us, and we were in a little bit of a foul trouble at the very first of that one too. But we were up in that game, and I thought, we're going to go on a run, we're going to make this happen. And how we lost, like, I rewind that game, and I actually talked to my girls in the locker room, and that game can't define our season. That game can't define us in that moment. And especially for our seniors, like, I felt like our girls played so hard for our seniors. And so it was really, really hard to, see the heartbreak in there and to see. But I told the girls, you have to take what the seniors gave us this year and learn from what they brought. And each and every one of you pick, some characteristic of what they brought to us and instill that in you for next year so that it continues on, because they taught us a lot this year, and they led by example. And both of them, Smai had graduated. She could have left somewhere else. Right. And Lauren went in the portal, and she came back. And so they chose us, and they chose to stay here and represent BYU. And the way they did it will be an example and hold a special place in my heart forever, because they gave everything they had. And so I just really, really love and appreciate them. And their girls fought hard for them, because they're the seniors and they're our leaders. And so it was it was not the way we wanted it to end, but I do have to say, like, they gave everything they had, so I was proud of them for that.
And I want to get into more of what your seniors did a little bit later. You ended up finishing 10th in the Big 12 conference. What do you hope to accomplish next season now that you kind of know the expectations in the Big 12?
I mean, I want to be in the tournament.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the end goal, because when you get there, it's like survive and advance, right? Like anything can happen any night out. And so that's what the goal is, I think, for everybody. So getting back to the tournament and establishing that as in this program, that's going to be expected every year is what I want to do.
Your team went 15-2 when holding teams under 66 points, and you pride yourself on defense. What did you like about your defensive stance this season, and where do you feel like you can improve?
We worked on a couple ways to guard this summer, and I felt like that came through. But then we also had to make adjustments, and I felt like the girls actually bought into what we were trying to do, and they worked at it every day. And so keeping that discipline throughout the season is what I want to work on next year, because sometimes, like, I feel like you get on a run, or, you know, your defense kind of goes away, you let middle drives happen, or, you know, second, third shots. And so that's kind of where it breaks down. And so working on like the next play mentality, even if you get scored on, because sometimes like we put so much emphasis on defense, they get scored on, it says letdown. I can't have that. You know, we got to turn around and go back down. And so working on those two things, I think next year is going to be big for us.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Coach Whiting will talk about saying goodbye to some standout seniors and starting a new era with some fantastic freshmen. This is Her Why. Welcome back to Her Why. I'm Lauren McLean with BYU women's basketball head coach Amber Whiting. You mentioned these girls before, two incredible seniors who won't be back next year, and Lauren Gustin. She started all 33 games, and Kaylee Smiler started in 32 games. I know they've meant a lot to you and your team. What did Lauren bring to this team that you feel like is going to be so hard to replace?
Well, obviously her rebounds and double-doubles, right?
Yeah.
But I think that she brings to our team like that relentless work ethic. And the thing she never stops. She never quits. And so, but off the court, she brings like I don't know, I call it chasing squirrels sometimes, because she just has so many like off the wall comments. It just keeps us laughing. And so I talked about it in the banquet, but she kind of taught me how to just like be myself no matter what, right? And be unapologetically myself. And that's who Lauren is. And so she just, no matter what, she's just going to say it how it is, and she's not going to apologize for it, because that's who she is. And so I just love that about her.
And what about Kaylee Smiler? Her family coming to senior night was one of the coolest things that I've ever seen. What do you feel like she has brought to the team that's going to be hard to replace?
Obviously, she's our defensive stopper, but that toughness and that grit, the game that she got hit in the head and went out and got stitches and came back, her family was there for that one. And that, for me, I just remember thinking, or when Jeff said she's getting stitches, I was thought, oh, crap, I've lost her, you know. Yeah. And then she's right back ready to go. I was like, what in the heck? So she, just that for her, I mean, teaching our girls how to be tough and just pop back up after everything and respond, you know. I think she's a really, really loyal kid. And one thing that I learned from her this season, every time you talk to her, you leave wanting to be a better person, you know. And so I think that she just, how she holds herself, she's always holding others accountable, but she doesn't hold them accountable unless she's doing it and walking the walk, right? So that for her is, I feel like, going to be really hard to replace. So when I talk to my women in the locker room after that loss, like, pick something that they taught you and always keep that in your life, because people come and go in our lives, but as long as we learn and have that connection with them, I think it helps everybody around them.
Absolutely. And you also had some powerful freshmen who made a huge impact this year. Your daughter, Amari Whiting, played in all 33 games. And then you had Kaylee Woolston, who ended up getting injured, which was such a bummer. But both of these women stepped up as leaders. How have they contributed to this team's success?
So I didn't see them playing this big of a role if we were to rewind a year ago, right? And I think that they each, Kaylee Wilson is relentless as far as like the amount of time that she puts in the gym and her shots and everything else. And so practice translates. And it did for her. And I was really happy with how she held herself. And we lost a couple players to injury and then leaving. And so she had to actually step in and take some of the role of a ball handler and a point guard from the, when Amari needed a break because she can't play the whole time. And I think she did a phenomenal job doing that and just taking on the role that we needed her to take. And then Amari obviously coming back from her ACL, no way, shape, or form did I see her playing that many minutes or doing that, And she looks back at the season and she'll sometimes, think that it wasn't as good as she wanted. She performed as good as she wanted because, coming back from that's rough. But I just told her, at the end of the day, you let us in the Big 12. And we're out of the season healthy, knock on wood. So blessings on blessings for that. And now we can build for next year with that, right? Obviously, everyone knows we're losing Wilson for a mission, which I am incredibly proud of her to do and to choose. And so coming back, she's going to be a huge help for us in that nature. But then, Amari going forward next year, she's got to teach the new incomers, how we do things and what we do, but also take on a bigger role, both defensively because we're replacing Smythe in some form, right?
Yeah.
They both, I looked for their future and they both have 3 big years ahead of them. Makes me sad that they aren't going to do it together because they had a really good connection. But they'll at least have one together in the end, so that's good.
Were you like, Kaylee, are you sure you've made the right decision?
I
know what God may have told you, but
I know
I'm your coach. No,
you have to be happy for her
absolutely,
because the mission's nothing but blessings.
What has year 1 been like of coaching your daughter at this level? Because I know you've done it in the past. What's it been like coaching her at the collegiate level?
I've learned a lot through this year, things that I didn't see, but my staff has been very good at helping me trying to balance, right? And I learned at very first, because I took film home with me a couple times that I shouldn't have, and it didn't go so well. So I have to be better at, leaving it at the office because I can't follow, Wilson home and berate her about, what turnover, whatnot. And so I'm trying to leave it there. I'm also trying to, at times, go do something that doesn't involve basketball with her. So you still have that mother relationship. Yeah. But I feel like I need to give her a little bit more compliments too. I've learned I'm not very complimentary to her. And so I need to be better at that. There's a lot of things I need to be better at.
We all do. Well, that's hard. It's hard when especially it's your child and you see their potential, you know what they can be and how good they are. And you use some tough love.
Yeah.
So I get it. We all can be better. A couple other players that had standout seasons, Emma Calvert and Lauren Davenport. Tell us what you liked out of their play.
They both took on different roles throughout the season, either a starter or coming off the bench. And either one I had individual conversations with going through the season about, that, because sometimes you could take a hit. But I feel like that Baylor game that Emma came in, and I think she had 14 points in 13 minutes. She killed it for us. And if she doesn't come in and do that, we don't win.
Right.
So as I'm talking through, everybody has their individual role. Like Dav, when she comes in off the bench and gives us that spark this year, that was just you can't put a price on that. You can't measure that. And she just would do that for us. And the energy that she plays with is incredible. And Emma provides a lot of mismatches.
Yeah.
Either on the block if they're smaller or if they're bigger, she can stretch it and shoot it. And so both of those girls, we can't have the success we had this year without either one of them. And I'm only looking at them next year to build on what they've brought and to be that much bigger roles for us.
Where have you seen the most growth from your team after this season?
Ooh, growth. Obviously, we got mature really quick because of things that we had to experience in the Big 12. And I feel like the connectivity from last year to this year got a lot better. And I would say just, buying into what we're trying to do, whether it's, play in pace and space and transition and push the ball or pick up or do whatever. I feel like this year it was no questions asked. They just jumped in. And so I love that they did that, but that comes from our seniors too, right?
Yeah.
And so the leadership that they brought in that nature. And I remember there was a lot of times in film or, they would point out things, and they were teaching those young girls the whole year. Even in practice, like if we're talking about how we're going to guard a ball screen or what we're going to do on something, Smiley would turn to Amari or Wilson and be like, okay, this is that, just teaching them and leading them and just saying, this is how we do things. And I just love that they both stepped up in that nature. So I would think that the young ones learned a lot this year, not just from the coaching staff, but from each other.
When you go to the women's basketball page on BYUCougars.com, there's a picture of Lauren Gustin, and she's talking to the team, and all eyes are on her. Is that just an accurate portrayal of kind of how it was game in and game out?
Yeah. I mean, if those two talked, everybody was listening.
Yeah.
And I say a lot of times, like, if you can't walk the talk, then you're not going to have much to back up. Nobody's going to listen, right? But those two do. And so I just love that they brought that leadership this year. I mean, the Lauren I met, when I first got the job, no way does she take on that. But she has grown exponentially in using her voice and using it to teach for a positive way for these women.
Women's basketball has been in the spotlight recently, and largely due to Caitlin Clark, who's had an incredible season. What do you think that means for the game, and especially on the women's side of basketball?
Well, just to see how much it's growing and the viewership and everything else. Like, it's a good time to be in women's basketball. But I mean, that's one thing I want my women to realize is what they stand for and to use their voice for what's good. Because there's a lot of times where it can turn ugly, or it can, other things can get highlighted that you really don't want to. And so as long as they're being true to who they are, putting their beliefs and their systems first and out there, that I think that they can use their voice for good.
I love that. When you look at your personnel that's coming back and that you're adding to the team, what gets you most excited about your third season as head coach?
I think that the people, we're in the portal still, right, with adding those pieces, but I think that the freshmen coming in, they give us more depth. They give, I just love freshmen. Like, they have that energy and that, like, innocent still that, that they think. And and the funny stories that but I'm just looking forward because they already have a connection. A couple of them came in last week and they just hung out with our girls, And so I love that that's already happening organically. We don't have to force that. So I'm excited about it.
We're here with BYU basketball women. Let me start that again. We're here with BYU women's basketball head coach Amber Whiting. Amber, thank you so much for taking the time with me. Good luck this summer. Hopefully you get a little bit of break, more than 2 days, according to your husband.
Thank you.
And good luck next season.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks also to Annie Robinson and Sydney Simpson for producing this episode. Cleon Wall is the senior producer. Her Why is a production of BYU Radio.